Hello and welcome to today's Stahls TV presentation. I'm Josh Ellsworth with Stahls TV, and today we're going to talk about how to grow your sales with independent retailers and boutiques. We have about 30 to 45 minutes together today, depending on the questions that come in and audience participation. So I would encourage you, if you have questions about anything in today's presentation, feel free to type that in through the GoToWebinar client. We have Jimmy Palmer, who will be listening to your questions, reading those and directing those in at several points throughout today's presentation. And I'd like to start by asking you a poll question. And so one of the questions we have is, are you currently selling to independent retailers or boutiques? We're going to launch that. If you can just take a second to complete that answer for us. All right. And how many people, Jimmy, do we have that have been selling?
We have 80% no and 20% yes.
Okay, thank you very much. So the majority of the folks have not been selling through this sales channel, so hopefully we'll be able to share some advice on why you may want to approach independent retailers and boutiques. And for those of you that are currently selling through this channel, perhaps we'll be able to share some ideas throughout today's presentation on how to refine your approach, perhaps grow your sales in that category. So without further ado, let's dive into the presentation on how to grow sales with independent retail stores and boutiques. First, and this is a multi-step process that I'm going to walk through here today, 7 steps altogether. And step number 1 is define your market. As you can see on the screen, we've outlined some potential retailers that may be around town or that you may have the potential to sell to. These were just brainstorming of ideas. I'd imagine that you could add many other folks to this list of store types that you could potentially be selling to. So you start to look at opportunities like children's boutiques or dancewear shops that are selling costumes and doing alterations. Even restaurants have the ability to resell apparel. Basically, what all these places have in common is that they are retail stores, and by you placing your apparel with them, whether that's with your design and your style on it, or perhaps customizing it to represent their brand, it's going to expand your visibility and build demand for products. Basically, all of these retailers have built-in customers that visit their stores frequently, so it gives you the opportunity to add apparel to their mix as a sales item. Now, just to be upfront as far as considering the markets that we have, is one consideration that you do have to consider when you go wholesale is it implies that you are going to be selling at less than a profit margin than if you sold direct. Of course, the benefits of that are that you don't have the overhead of the storefront yourself, and you can reach different built-in customers that these storefronts, retail spaces have. But you are going to sacrifice some margin in order to do that. The other thing that you're going to sacrifice is direct communication with the customer on these apparel sales. And so for that reason, it's very important as you're lining up these boutiques and retailers that you build a solid relationship, solid communication to understand their customer base, because when you get a solid understanding of that and can sort of create products that will sell well, it's going to give both of you, both the retailer and you as an apparel manufacturer, a better chance of success. Next, I'd like to look at the presentation and talk about really understanding the market. So once you select the market, and what I'm advocating here is that you define a specific target market, number 1, a type of store that you want to sell. Don't say, I'd like to sell to all 20 of these and attack them all at once. Figure out what store types may value the same sort of looks and styles, and then ultimately begin to craft a persona on who shops in those stores. So for instance, if we said we wanted to go out and reach children's boutiques or stores like that sell children's apparels, accessory, and other items, I encourage you to try to dive in on the buyer. Who is the actual buyer, the consumer, that's going to be walking into that children's boutique and making a purchase? This is very important before we start to craft or offer or create looks specific to this market. So some instances that we've sort of crafted here, when we really hone in on the buyer type, at a children's boutique, perhaps it's the mother, an aunt, a grandma. When do they buy? When does this buyer type walk into a children's boutique to complete a purchase? Perhaps it's back to school shopping. Perhaps it's shopping for a special occasion, such as a holiday or even a birthday gift. Why do these folks buy and when do they buy? And ultimately, you'll want to define a budget. The more work you can do up front to understand the actual buyer, the more likely you are to present a relevant offer to the children's boutique, something that their end consumer is going to value, and give you both the chance of success. Odds are you're not going to be able to just walk into a retail store and sort of download them on their client base and who their customer is. You're going to have to make some assumptions, spend some time in the store researching the market to ultimately understand who is buying products, and so you can begin to craft your offer. Now, before we get to the point of crafting our offer and actually starting to create blank apparel and pricing it and understanding the pricing strategy, once you understand the types of retail stores that you want to target, the customers that are shopping there, I would highly encourage you to get your own house in order. And that's the next slide we have for you here is get your house in order. What does that mean? That basically means apply a fresh coat of paint that is relevant to your buyer. So when you look at your brand for your apparel decoration shop that you have, there's a lot of things that go into branding and style elements that go into it. You want to make sure that your brand speaks to your potential buyer. You're probably going to be inclined to pick store types that your brand already speaks to. That's going to create a lot less work on your part if you already have a built-in customer base that you can expand on. So consider things like your logo, your colors, your fonts, your business cards, even things like hang tags that will be affixed to the apparel that will sell in the store that will promote your brand, or apparel tags that are perhaps in place of or alongside the manufacturer's tag on the apparel to build your apparel brand in line. That way they keep coming back to that retail store, to that boutique, and you're building sort of your brand alongside through that retailer with the potential that you can achieve sales in other ways and gain recognition in this way. Website pages, social media platforms. Basically, when you go out and you make a sales call to a retailer, what I would encourage you to do is look at your brand through the eyes of the retailer, through the eyes of that customer. When you consider that I'm going to make a sales call to a children's boutique, I'm going to go in, try to get with a decision maker, perhaps drop off a business card, I would want it to speak to who I am as a company, what my image is. Odds are they're going to visit whatever's on that business card to learn more about me. That could be your website, it could be your Facebook page, but I'd want those sort of about me pages or information that they would glean from those websites, from that social media presence, to have a solid impact in me getting a call to reflect who I am as a brand and ultimately tie in to the market that I'm trying to develop. So it could be as simple as putting a wholesale tab on your website so it instantly has a place where that buyer type can go to understand the offer and what you can do. So definitely get your house in order, look at your brand through the eyes of your customer is going to be an important step. Next, I'd like to talk specifically about conceptualizing your line. And so if you're following along, so far we have defined our target market, we have understand the buyer type that's going into that store, into that retailer, making sure my brand sort of is prepared to have customers walk in, wherever that may be, and have a nice image. Because remember, I'm a wholesaler. There's going to be a different perception of what I need to look like now that I'm selling business to business. And now I'm finally ready to start conceptualizing or ideating or coming up with design styles that I think will sell well to this market. And so I'm doing a little switch on the market type. This is a specialty retailer concept, not a children's boutique, although this design may be able to sell well there as well. But if we said we have a specialty retailer that's specialized in selling dog treats and gifts for dogs or whatever it might be in a resort town, you want to think about that buyer, that customer type, and say, what will I now create from a product standpoint that matches that buyer and what they want? And so, for instance, we've come up with this design. I'm a little dorky, which is, of course, a clever saying that plays on the Yorkie dog breed, also is sort of accented nicely with some design style with glitter with the glasses and the bow tie. And you really want to think about why they buy and why they're most likely to buy. How can you separate your line from everybody else? And in this case, we found that customers are more likely to buy when a clever saying is paired with a specific dog breed. And so we want to get targeted to the point where someone comes into that specialty retailer, that pet shop, and they are looking for items that speak specifically to the breed of dog that they own. And so therefore, we're creating the concept not just with a generic dog saying, but one that's specific to the breed. That way it will allow our business a chance of success as well as the retailer. And so the only way you would really know this about your buyer type is to conduct research and to test market. And so some ways you can do that, of course, is walking into retailers that match the profile of who you want to sell to and just spending time there shopping and understanding what customers are looking for. You can also do a fair amount of research online, whether it's looking at sort of Google search volume to understand what specific phrasing people are searching for, or even looking on a website such as Pinterest to understand what's trending, what's being pinned a lot from an apparel design type in that market vertical. Or you could follow sort of leaders in that market if you can identify any to make sure that you're being inspired by their concepts so you have things that are going to be retail relevant. So sort of conceptualizing with a good understanding, a good framework of the market, what will sell well for the retailer and what's popular and trending for the buyer type is of critical importance before you go to any further step in the process. So with a solid understanding of that, the next thing I'd like to show you sort of in the conceptualize right after that phase is making sure that there's money to be made for everybody. You can over-engineer a shirt and make it so expensive, so elaborate that it's tough for you to make money or for the retailer to make money. So you sort of want to back into your cost in a market price by understanding what can the market demand for the look that you're trying to ideate or create. And so some ways to do that is, of course, through your research, is understand what stuff is priced at and what it's selling for, what items are selling. But usually when you talk wholesale, basically they want to get a 100% markup. They want to double the price that they're buying it for their selling price. So one thing you're going to have to get comfortable with is that the retailer is going to make more money on that garment than you're going to make as an apparel decorator. That's just the way it is, and you're going to have to get comfortable with that, especially when you consider that they have a lot more overhead, a lot more expense than you may have as an apparel decorator. So you need to be comfortable with them making more margin than you. Typically, the advantage we have when we're dealing sort of at a small or local store level, independent retailer or boutique, which is the title of this class, we have the ability, it's not selling to a big box chain, I have a little bit of ability to sort of relax that margin a little bit. And so I gave you two sort of optimal versus possible price calculations here. So come up with a market price, what can I command for that tank top with that design on it? And for the optimal wholesale price, meaning a home run, divide that market price by 2. And so in this case, if I felt I could sell that for $30 at retail, that would be the going market rate divided by 2. That's going to give me a $15 price point that I need to hit to the retailer in order for them to be able to make money. Next, I looked at a possible, meaning this isn't going to be a home run, but I believe I would be able to close a deal with a smaller retail dividing by times and a half to get my wholesale price from my market price. So in this case, potentially I can sell this garment in the $15 to $20 range, depending on what sort of competition is in the area, competing for that retailer's business, and really the relationship. Are they sourcing globally? Maybe they're only sourcing locally. Perhaps you're their first apparel item, and so you'll have a little bit more latitude on charging a higher price based on the quality of work, what you're creating, and the competition. So that's all part of defining market price and sort of backing into your price point. And we'll stick here on this analyzing market price and profit potential, because once you understand the market price, you really need to back into how much money can I make with this? Is this a look that I want to put in my line sheet, which we're going to talk about next? Is this a look that I want to present to a retailer? And so it's very important before you embark on this journey to have a really solid understanding of costing and what it costs you to make something. Otherwise, all of your efforts, and you can get a lot of volume through this channel, but all of your efforts can be for no profit, which obviously is going to cost your business in the long haul, perhaps lead to out of business if you're not profitable. And so understanding the cost to produce is extremely important. And we give a ton of classes on Stahls TV on how to do this, but ultimately you're going to be looking at your labor and materials. That's not divided by materials. I made a mistake there on my PowerPoint. It's your labor plus your materials. Those are all of your direct expenses added to your overhead, which I typically like to apply as a rate, as a percentage of the direct cost, the labor and the materials, and that's going to give me my total cost to produce. And so I'm going to move over to a quick spreadsheet that we give you for free on stahlstv.com to show you how I came up with that rate for this specific item. See if I can just zoom a little closer for you here. Okay, so this is downloadable from stahlstv.com, just under the resources tab on the top navigation of Stahls TV. It's called the cost calculator. You do need to register and log in to grab this, but for a business that's doing heat transfer vinyl, it's a tremendous tool that we give you for free. And it starts by populating the shop info. So in this case, for you, the apparel decorator, punch in your overhead percentage. I always encourage you to calculate overhead as a percentage. The calculation for this we won't be able to go into in detail in this class, but we have classes on Stahls TV about calculating costs and selling prices that cover the equation for this in depth. So type in your overhead percentage, which is basically your indirect expenses divided by your direct expenses over X period of time, whether that's 90 days, a year, 1 month, whatever it may be. Put in your rate to your heat press operator and your weeding operator, even if that's you. Make sure you pay yourself for the task that you're completing. In this case, remember, our design is this 2-color, I'm a little dorky design with the white fashion film and the red glitter flake. What I'm going to do now is I'll take the dimensions. So I have 2 cut designs per garment. It's a 2-layer material, so I entered a 2 there. I'm going to say it'll take me about a minute to weed each design, and it's going to take me about 2 minutes to heat press each design by the time I line it up, line the shirt up, press it, everything that happens. My blank tank top, in this case from Sanmar, cost me $4.99 at a quantity of 12. And keep in mind, I'm selling wholesale here, and so I'm going to get the benefit of ordering garments in bulk because I'm going to apply a minimum order quantity to the retailer in order to get this piece, and I'll cover that in a moment here. In this case, if 12 is my minimum order quantity for them to buy this product, I'll just say, hey, 12 pieces is the worst case scenario, which is how I got my cost of the garment. And then I enter my design dimensions. So the white layer was 6 by 10 inches, the red layer was 3 by 3 inches. And then if I scroll over to the right, it will give me a cost per piece depending on the material that I'm using. And it has all the popular Stahls materials in here. So I know this is a combo of fashion film and glitter flake. So what I'm going to do, this will only calculate same material. So I'll go to the glitter flake cost knowing it's higher. And I'll just say if both colors were glitter flake, it would cost me $8.36 because it's higher than fashion film. So I'd rather err on the side of more expensive than less expensive. So that will instantly kick out everything. You know, if you had a change here and we said, let's take a look at this on a $1.99 t-shirt because that's going to not hit my price point, I can just change that element, keep everything else the same, and I can see now it cost me $4.91. So it gives you the concept. You can mess with this tool. It's free to you. But that's how I got my labor and my materials plus my overhead to get my total cost, in this case that we just talked about, $8.36 per piece at that 12-piece quantity. So hopefully you're still following along. If you remember from the previous slide, we said the optimal would be the retailer would be able to buy it from you for $15. Some simple math says I would make $6.64 in profit per piece. And then if I was able to sort of negotiate a less of a price, or I wanted to go in not giving them 100% markup, if I can sell that piece for $20, if I think I can command that, I can make $11.64 per piece. In my mind, that's very profitable. The benefit that you have here is that they're able to command a higher price because they are having that walk-in traffic, that impulse traffic. targeted traffic, in this case, of being a specialty retailer that sells specifically to pet owners. Or if they're in the market vertical of a children's boutique, people are walking into that shop when they are looking for a birthday gift or a special occasion outfit. And so the perceived value of items can be higher, and typically you can command at a higher price. Now, just as a general, the last thing you want to do is take this "I'm a dorky" design, put it on your website, and sell it at the same price you're selling it to the retailer for. You need to be very protective of that sort of recommended, that MSRP, manufacturer's suggested retail price, and make sure if you are going to sell direct that you're at those prices or higher. That way you're not sort of abandoning the sales channel and undercutting them. That's extremely important, especially if you're in a local town or you're not doing a private label. Your brand is on there, and so customers, consumers can come direct to your site, perhaps to complete follow-up purchases. So just understanding that that's all part of crafting the offer and making sure you think strategically through this product and price strategy. If we go back to the presentation, that would give you sort of the example on profitability, and so it can be extremely profitable. A lot of shops would be very happy with $6.64 profit per piece. Definitely shops would be happy with $11.64, especially in 12-piece quantities. The next thing, after you sort of have your market, your concept, you've analyzed the market price and profit potential, really I need to complete that exercise across however many garments I want to offer into this market vertical, and then I want to create one of the most important pieces of selling to retailers, and that's called a line sheet. So a line sheet, very simply, is a easy PDF, email, or handout of a brochure that has your product offering, your pricing, and your ordering guidelines in order for them to buy. This is different than a catalog in that this has all your pricing and your choices. It's sort of like how they form their order by looking at this. Definitely recommend that if you can make your line sheet market specific or vertical specific. So I would have, for instance, a product line sheet for children's boutiques as a market. Perhaps I would even have one for fall or back to school seasonal wear versus, spring holidays where I'm covering St. Patrick's Day and Easter and Memorial Day and so on. And so the idea of sort of grouping your line sheets, that way it gives you another reason to go back out to a retailer and show them sort of your latest offering for consideration in their retail store. You don't want your line to get stale and static. Sure, you may have products that are stock products that sell well, that are your everyday, but I certainly recommend, if you're going to go through retailers, making sure you keep fresh stuff happening on the shelf and new designs, stay engaged. What we're looking at here is just a sample line sheet I pulled off of Pinterest from Nordstrom. Not sure if it's legit, but I thought it would represent well sort of what this should look like. You can see here they're utilizing product sketches on their line sheet. Product photos is usually an easier way to execute it for you. So photography is going to be extremely important when you're creating this line sheet. Also, some other key things you want to have on this is clear pricing, listing both the retail and the wholesale price point. You want to make sure you list the retail, in this case would be the manufacturer's suggested retail price. Sometimes if you have multiple retailers in a close location selling the same exact design, you may want to have a MAP price as well, which would be your minimum advertised price. You also want them to be able to make a complete buying decision off of this line sheet. So you should have all pertinent size info, color choice where available. Want to make sure you have item numbers so they can call it out on an order form. Any minimum order quantities that would be relevant, including clear pricing with price breaks if you are going to offer breaks over certain quantities, and delivery info. After they place this, when can they expect to have inventory in their store, whether that's for a season or just for an opening or a fill-in order. That would typically be a separate page that would have all of your policies, ordering guidelines, and delivery rules within your line sheet. So specifically, here's a good concept for like heat transfer film. If we were selling to a coffee shop, a product collection in photography for a coffee shop may look like this. So you make me so frappy. Notice once again, clever sayings, things that are trending out there on Pinterest. These are looks that we've created on Stahls TV with just heat transfer films, and we have tutorials that show you how to create these if you don't know how to do this. But the benefit of heat printing for selling to these small boutiques and retailers is it's very inexpensive to try things, and I can create on demand. So it's not like I'm screen printing 144 of these and hoping I can place them in retailers, multiple retailers, or really having to commit to size and quantity. With heat printing, I can do fill-in orders at very low quantities. I can do cool special effects like this, and it's very easy to try or target concepts, which is why it's ideal for you to sort of reach this market with better business rules than they're used to seeing when they're ordering screen printing or high volume contract embroidery. And so you get some ideas. In this case, we're showing you that be aware that they probably are going to want to see a whole garment, so you're going to want to shoot sort of a flat shot for your line sheet. But if there is a finish that is relevant, you want to make that come alive through the photography. So perhaps showing a close-up to make sure they can get the full story of what that design says, what it looks like, and also what treatments or what finishes are created. I'd go away from calling anything vinyl or getting too detailed in manufacturing terminology. They really just care about the look and the style and the fact that that's glitter versus a basic finish. So keep it generic when you're doing that. Also, some product details if you want to take it further on your particular listing. Here's how one may shake up for this particular listing. Making sure you have a product description, item number, price that you want them to sell it for, your wholesale price, minimum order quantity, and sizing available. Of course, a sizing chart from your blank apparel supplier can go a long way as well. And then also just understanding where this product will be sold once you start to talk about delivery. So even considering, do I need to have branded hangers in that retailer? Do they have their own display? Is there opportunity for signage on top of the retail rack? Can I separate myself from other retailers, perhaps in a tourist destination or sort of a souvenir shop where it would be a better display to sort of roll the garment with the image out and tie it up with a bow or have it stand out more as a gift? Perhaps in like a hospital gift shop, something that would be a good birth announcement, or a blanket for a newly born baby that's rolled up and has more of a style that's sort of ready to grab and gift. These are all considerations, and it's all about understanding your customer, figuring out what unique value that you can punch into your value proposition that that customer segment, that buyer type will offer. That's going to make all the difference between not just calling on people, but being able to convert people to buyers. And then the end goal of having that product move off of their shelf is through communication, through discovery work and research, and truly understanding the customer and what parts of the value they offer to make sure you're delivering that season after season to these retailers. So line sheet considerations, just to sort of recap some of those, and product considerations just in bullet point form. I recommend that your line sheet should be specific to the market vertical that you're reaching. I would recommend, if you're just starting in this, or even if you're not, one vertical at a time. It's going to allow you to focus and sort of expand out. So maybe I'll hit children's boutiques within a 500-mile radius from me to start, rather than trying to hit every business type in my local town, because that's really going to make it easier to design products. It's going to make it easier to order those garments when I get fill-in and opening orders. And ultimately, it's going to translate better to that customer type, because I'm going to put my energy and thought into one market, and it's really going to be relevant when I show it to this buyer type, and I'll gain experience on my sales calls, which I'll talk about next. Some other things you may want to consider in addition to just a line sheet. Of course, if you can visit them, it's always great to have physical samples, but an emailable lookbook, basically, that communicates your brand's feeling and style. Perhaps some even lifestyle shots of those garments on somebody that's a typical buyer sitting in a coffee shop enjoying a coffee. You just want to deliver that good feeling to your customers and paint the picture of the experience for them through your visuals and product photography. So one lookbook option would be Animoto, which is Animoto. Very inexpensive subscription. You can upload photos, select music to go to it, and they create these really cool slideshows where you can custom edit the text that sort of overlays. And it's just really easy to get a professional look and feel inexpensively. Also consider on that line sheet stock products that are your sort of core, reorders based on tiered pricing. With heat printing, you can do limited runs or special editions and have seasonal styles, making sure to note those and communicate those at a frequency. And then the idea of personalized products. And so this one's a little bit different, and you'll have to set up business rules around this, but imagine being able to sell to somebody like a florist or perhaps a bridal shop, somewhere where personalization and customization is pretty typical of a buyer. And so in a bridal shop, for instance, you can put the, just married, the specific date, and the bride and groom's name on that particular item, making sure that in that line sheet you would present, here are a customizable item. It's probably going to look a lot like what you could get from Things Remembered, but for apparel. And you're going to have specific turn times, and maybe there's a process where you can collect orders every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and basically turn those items in a few days, either shipping direct to their end customer or delivering products to the store for them to come back in and buy. So think about that with heat printing and with personalization. Personalization has been proven to sell at retail, so any way you can incorporate personalization into the process, it is going to make it a little bit more complicated as far as managing orders, but it's an opportunity that is really undiscovered and a lot of people aren't hitting unless the retailer himself or herself invests in the equipment to do it, which a lot of times they're not interested in doing that because of the labor requirement and the special knowledge that you would have to be able to decorate accurately. As you know, if you're an apparel decorator, you went through a learning curve, or maybe you're still on that journey to figure out how to heat print products accurately with durability. You have that part figured out, just marry up to somebody with a good sales channel that can get your products out there. Any questions coming in, Jimmy? No? All good? Okay, good. So if there are questions that aren't, that are a little more detailed or aren't specifically relevant to this particular session that's coming in, no, we'll respond to those, just not on the air, but we will reply back to you. Okay, last but not least is making sales calls. And so once you have all this together and you're like, I have the best offer ever, I have the best photography ever, I have the best line sheets ever, and I'm ready to make a sales call. Basically, same process. Do your research. Understand these are the customers that I'm going to be calling. Hopefully you know these customers before you're even creating the product offering and have a good idea of who you'll be calling to. When I say be prepared, if you can, walk into the store and ask who makes decisions on new products for your store. Perhaps you'll get the owner right there and they may have time. So you want to be prepared when you go in looking for the decision maker, that you're prepared to showcase your line, you have your business cards, you're dressed appropriately, your samples are in the car, etc., to be able to lock them down if the opportunity presents itself. You don't want to miss that opportunity. But what I would typically go in is don't go in looking for a meeting that moment because you don't want to inconvenience them. They have retail sales to worry about. I would go in, look for the decision maker, ask them how they consider new products, and see if you can make an appointment to present your line, making sure you have a leave behind, not revealing pricing yet, but a leave behind that gives them an idea of who you are and what your brand's about. So try to be prepared in case you get into the call, but try to make an appointment where you can sit down and go through it more in depth. At that point, you want to take your product presentation, your samples, your line sheet, and you want to be tight and targeted with your approach. So you don't want to be jumping all over the place, have a very concise presentation with the looks that sell, show them the most popular ones. If you don't have most popular ones, act as if you do and predict which ones will be most popular. And then once you conclude that call, you're looking for the buy. So you're looking for them to commit to pick up the line. Odds are they may not place that opening order on that call. And so what I would recommend doing is a sales win on that call is defining a follow-up schedule. And a good follow-up would be asking the question, when do you think you'll be able to make a yes-no decision on stocking our line? Or when do you think you might be able to make a decision on stocking one of our items and measuring the response? finding out when that date is. For some people it'll be next week, for some it may be 1 month, but making sure you have a follow-up appointment, or what I would call an advance to the next step of the sales process before you leave the store. And that's going to give you your best chance of success of sort of having a sales process, a pipeline, and calling on hopefully hundreds of retailers that you're going to try to move through to a close with all of the work you've done to create this product line to this market vertical. So, in summary, you want to, 1, define your market. 2, understand your market, specifically the buyer, what they value, and consequently what the retailer is going to value. You want to 3, get your house in order, making sure your website's polished, your messaging's polished, and you look like a professional business-to-business sales machine. Next, conceptualize your line. Come up with concepts, but make sure in step 5 that they can be profitable for you and they aren't just sort of everything that looks like the sort of unicorn garment that nobody can really make money on. After that, create a market and create a market-specific line sheet. So once you understand this is the market I'm going to target, I can make money here on these concepts, I'm going to make more of those concepts, try to create about 6 to 10 products to go out and present for the customer to choose from, including pricing. And then, of course, I'm going to work to make sales calls and appointments after that. So approaching independent retailers and boutiques is new for 80% of you. The 20% that are doing it, hopefully you're able to pick up some tips here. Obviously it's working for you, or perhaps you need to refine your offer and that's why you're here today. But I'm hopeful that some of the presentation today will have energized you to try to reach this market. And certainly we'd love to hear your feedback here on Stahls TV on where you have found success or where you're struggling, so we can try to address specific challenges that you might have in growing your business. Jimmy, before we conclude today's presentation, are there any other questions?
No, sir.
Okay, so I want to thank you all for watching Stahls TV. We're going to get you out of here about 5 minutes early today. Thanks for watching.